Hello, hello, my brothers and sisters. This is Garrett Bake, your brother in arms, and welcome to another episode of The Tactical Businessman. Today, we have a special guest on the show, Nathan Helberg. I want to give you a quick history about Nathan. Nathan, born and raised in Australia, but this man is a world traveler for different reasons, though, right? He's not living the laptop lifestyle, but he's spreading a message. And this is a very unique message. Now, as you know, I've had a couple of guests on this podcast before that have talked about the importance of taking care of your body, but Nathan takes this to the next level. He's got a company called World Zoo, ZUU, and it's all about liberating human movement. It's a body weight training system. Nathan started this company in May of 2008. And during this time, he's lived in Australia, he's lived in England, he's traveled all over Europe, and currently living in Florida. Now, what exactly is this thing? I'm going to have him share that with you. But I want you guys to get a taste of who it is that he's worked with, right? Because I want you to pay attention to what he has to say. Now, he's worked with the likes of Richard Branson, right? Richard Branson has a set of health clubs scattered all throughout Europe, and he's worked with Richard Branson in those clubs. He's worked with the Crunch clubs that are scattered all over the United States. And currently, he has a program that is being deployed within the school systems called Zoo Chimps, ZUU Chimps. Now, why? Think about this. How many kids right now do you see that are obese, overweight, that are suffering from depression, suicidal tendencies, bullying? We can go on and on and on. Why? Because they don't do the simple basic things, and that is take care of themselves first. So not only does Nathan do this, but he also has focused on creating a self-development program, a 28-day program where he takes executives and people who are struggling with addiction and things like that through this program to help them liberate themselves all through their physical body. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to the man of the hour, Nathan Helberg.
Garrett! Brother, get a touch. Boom.
Boom. Love
Thanks,
it.
buddy, for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for being on the show. So, Nathan, I kind of explained a little bit about you and what you do, but why don't you tell the audience a little bit about like yourself? How is it that you got into this space to begin with?
Good question, mate. I'll try and condense 12 years for you. First and foremost, I always like to tell people I'm just a dad, passionate father of 4 kids. I've been married for 23 years as well. I think people really need to understand that's the pinnacle of what I live for and what I live and breathe. But my journey started, I had lots of businesses before, but I finished playing footy and I was carrying extra weight, about 30 kilos heavier than what I am now. And I just set out on a path, buddy, to find movement again. And to cut a long story short, none of my coaches had taught me that traditional training just robs you of freedom of movement. And I was in my early 30s and I was moving like someone recovering from injury. It was pathetic. If I could sum up in one word the way I felt vulnerable. And if you can relate to that, just you're strong in set planes, but if you slipped, you're pretty scared because you just felt vulnerable. And I knew that wasn't right. So I set out on a journey not to create anything, and I'm always humble about that. I just set out on a journey to find my movement. Cut a long story short, I just developed that for 2 years by myself after work in a park. So I live and breathe it. You know what I mean? I live and breathe this movement. And it moved very quickly from my connections in Australia into elite sports because there was a huge space missing of movement. And we called it the bridge between gym strength and field strength. We were losing a massive percentage and injuries were through the roof because we were strong in the gym, but on the field, we had nothing that was specific to, you talk about operational readiness or game specific conditioning. We had nothing that sort of fitted that space. So Zoo moved into that space. I worked for years with pre-seasons in elite sports in Australia. And when you do movement's the fundamentals of all sports. So it doesn't matter what sports you play. Zoo, for me, is the foundation of all of that. And then it grew from elite sports to mums and dads. And that's when it sort of moved into the commercial world of fitness. And the commercial world of fitness, buddy, was just a joke at the time. You know, people were still doing what you and I were growing up with when we were grasshoppers, and no one had sort of progressed. No one was trying to educate people as to why they should be doing movement. That's one of the things I'm really big on. Don't do movement because I'm telling you to do it. All right, do it because you understand why you need to do it, because then it's sustainable. Right? Too many coaches are out there telling people what to do without giving them understanding, and it's only then that it leads to sustainability. So it moved pretty quick in that space. It was on trend. I hate that word, on trend, because if you ever present something that's on trend, sooner or later it has to go off trend, and
Right.
that's not what we teach kids. All right. If anyone says to me, Nathan, it's on trend, I'll just say, go wash your mouth out with soap. All right, then you come back and talk to me because it's movement, and we should be doing movement until we die. Just good movement. And so when I talk to people, I talk different, I present different, I just tell it like it is because my whole purpose is to add value to people so they understand that they can then go and help someone else. That's what life's all about, right?
So, like, I want to go a little bit deeper into you and this place where you were at. So, you call it footy, but for the audience, who most of whom are in the United States, what is footy?
So rugby.
Rugby. All right. So, for you Americans, that's the bigger oblong football, and yeah, they don't wear pads. Just remember that. If you've ever played rugby, which I have, it's a very violent sport. I think much more violent than football because there are no pads. So, talk about. I want to kind of hear your story as far as like you followed the traditional means of physical activity growing up, right? You just did what your coaches told you to do. Hey, do
Oh,
some bench press. Hey, do some curls, and then go out and then try to run sideline to sideline and rotate your hips and everything like that. So, like, talk about that and your frustrations and that had to do with all of those things.
well, mate, by the time you're in your early 30s, if anyone sort of plays sport, you're usually broken by the time you're in your 30s, and especially when it gets cold. You know, I broke my leg twice, broke my arm, and in the cold you sort of seize up, and especially if people are playing at a high level, it's today it's like mid 20s, late 20s, they're broken. And for coaches, especially in Australia at the time, it's just all about bulking up,
Mm,
getting bigger, getting bigger, getting bigger. And don't get me wrong, you do need size, but whatever happened to the heart of the of the person. And so in for me personally, mate, I got to a stage where I felt vulnerable and I just knew it wasn't right. I used to break dance when I was a younger man, and I used to have,
nice.
and I don't care what anyone says, like B-boys are some of the most functionally fit people on this planet.
This is
You see
true.
the ranges they get in, it's just phenomenal. And whenever I hear coaches bagging them, I'm like, you have no idea how strong these people are. Same with BMX riders, vert riders, they're just incredibly strong. Power to weight ratio is just incredible. So for me, mate, I just knew it was wrong. My youngest brother was doing parkour at the time, and we used to get together as young brothers do. Older brothers and younger brothers. He's 11 years younger, and we used to sort of strap it out. And he was doing gymnastics and parkour, and in the gym, he was incrementally just weaker than me, but I was much heavier. So I just knew that there was something wrong with traditional training. So, mate, I was just making stuff up. I've done different martial arts when I was growing up. So I was just stringing different movements together. I wasn't fit enough to do some of them. So I'd chop one movement in half and then I'd put it with another one. And I'd write every workout down, Garrett. I'm a huge believer that to get creative, you have to go through a process, not go through the motion. So every single workout I did was always different. Some days I'd be creative and I could write it in 10 minutes. Other days it'd take me an hour to write it out. And I'd go to a park and I'd try and put these movements together. I had very specific objectives to tick off. It needed to be low impact. Okay, my joints couldn't handle it. So we call it, it's called Zoo is hillet training. Everyone's still rambling about HIIT training. Hillet training is high intensity, low impact training. And when I'm talking with the military, they're like, is it possible that you can do high intensity, low impact training? The highest heart rate I've had, buddy, is 246, and we weren't running. Like we weren't running or we weren't making contact. And you know that's incredible, right? That's over 100%.
Yeah.
And for the audience, yes, your heart can beat faster than 100 beats, or can be faster than maximum. So, mate, when I put it together with this list of objectives, it made me drop body fat very quickly without running because my joints couldn't handle running anymore. And it got me into the shape. It got me into the best shape of my life at 35. And when you and I are 18, 21, 24, we're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. But to hit that at 35, mate, it was just like I can't. that's why I'm so passionate about it. And I've trained just thousands of coaches. And what I'm trying to get across to them is Zoo isn't about converting you. That's not what it's about. It's about adding value to what you are currently doing to see that there's a space for it to come in to whatever program you run.
So when you were experiencing, you were married at the time, correct? When you started experiencing all this like major pain, like how was that affecting your mental health? How was that affecting your relationship? Because I'm pretty sure when you started playing footy or rugby, you didn't see an end for it. Like you're like, I could play this forever, right? And then you started breaking things, and then things started falling apart. Like, how did that affect your psyche when you got to that point? Like before you started down this path of functional movement?
Well, mate, it certainly takes its toll with relationships. Um, when you, and especially for people who have played high level, when when it comes to that moment in time, I call them journeymen and journeywomen. They just go into this sort of no man's land where they're lost, and that's when they make rash decisions because their life has been so structured up to that point, and then when they hit this point here and there's an injury and their career is finished or whatever, it can put stresses on not just their wife but their family, their friendships, everything around them suffers. That's just the way we are as humans, and a lot of people will turn then. That's when they become addicts to different substances
Right.
because they're looking to get rid of those feelings, or they're looking for a way to continue playing, maybe if it's painkillers or things like that, or they're looking to drown their sorrows, turn to alcohol. So yeah, mate, it was a reasonably turbulent time, but that's why you and I were talking before we went on air. It's massive to be disciplined in the morning, and it's for me. I'm a momentum creature. That's the way I describe myself. If I don't have momentum, I'm just spinning my wheels. I hate it. And I dig my feet in and I rear my teeth and I go forward. So for me, it's always about this momentum I needed to have. So I knew, mate, that I needed to get a structure going for me personally.
So, share with the audience, like, what did you see the difference was when you were at this low point, struggling to even get out of bed in the morning, to where you were when like it clicked, when Zoo took off, when you're like, hey, this morning routine really works, and then it was like, what was the difference there in your mental psyche, physically? What was that like?
I guess, mate, for everyone's different, but for a lot of people, there needs to be a pain point. In other words, you need to feel enough pain before you change. A lot of people talk an A game, but they don't walk an A game. You know what I mean? And for me, I'm huge with family. Um, I've got four kids. I had three at the time, and I couldn't get down on the ground and claw with my littlest.
Wow.
And that just sucked, mate. And I didn't like who I'd become. Okay, I didn't like who I'd become, and I'm different to most people. I'm a huge believer on inspiration, not motivation. Motivation's external stimulus to make people act and behave a certain way. That's garbage. It's about inspiration because it comes from within, and that's how you lead your family. And others gravitate towards inspirational people. Not that that's just who I am. And I knew that I didn't want to be who this person was, and the only one who was going to change it was me.
Right.
So we're going into mindset, and we can do podcasts on that, but it was just me not wanting to stay who I was. Does that make
So,
sense?
yeah, absolutely. So you're at this lowest of low. You can't even get on the ground and play with your kids, which I've experienced as well. You know, being a police officer for 15 years, sitting in a car, having that gun belt on, my hips were crooked. Like I had constant lower back pain. So I remember experiencing this exact same thing. Um, so you went to the park, you went to these different places, you started to experiment with different functional movement workouts and exercises. How long was it before you started to see like a change?
In me personally,
Yes.
I made very first session.
Mm.
Very first session, I threw my guts up. Mate, look, it was such a shock to my system because at the time, buddy, I was training as a powerlifter. I was 30 kilos heavier, and I was 3 rep max, 1 rep max, that sort of training. I would look at the sit-up mat on the way out. I didn't respect conditioning. It was all about just lifting heavy, thinking that was the way to go, but I was just super dysfunctional. So, mate, the first session was a real wake-up call for me. I wanted to develop a training system I never conquered, if that makes sense. In other words, I wanted it to always challenge me. Guys, when you grow up lifting weights, throwing steel around, throwing tin around, you know it inside out, upside down, back to front. So you end up going through the motions, you know, chest and biceps, back and thrust, whatever it is, you just know it. And you go through these motions. I didn't want to do that anymore. I was in my mid-30s and I wanted it to be creative. So I wanted it to challenge me, not just physically, but mentally. And guys, you need to challenge yourself mentally. You need to challenge self-belief every time you train because life's tough. And I tell people that life's tough. So don't train soft because you
Mm.
learn nothing to transfer into life. So whenever I'd go into these parks, mate, the change wasn't just physical, it was mental as well because I needed to change my mental state and I needed to become more resilient as a father, as a husband. If I was going to just, change my whole sort of life course. And at the time, mate, I was in civil construction. I had a civil construction company and I would train after work in my steel cap boots just by myself as I lived and breathed this journey. And then, mate, I dropped a kilo every month for the first 12 months like clockwork. And over 2.5 years, I dropped 30 kilos and I went from this dysfunctional person to someone, my brother I was telling you about, when we ended up getting back together after 12 months, he threw up and passed out. When I woke him up, he's like, I can't believe how fit you're becoming. And I'm like, I can't believe how fit I'm becoming. And brother, this is in your mid-30s and you don't expect that in your mid-30s. If I had this when I was 17, 16, if I knew about movement when I was 8, 9, and I was taught the importance, I would have lived a different life. Does that
Mm.
make sense? So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so it was 2.5 years, mate, before I realized it had sort of a commercial value, and then I transferred out of my business into doing this full time.
So let's talk real quick. I love how you sell this. Like your brother, who was training parkour and was training gymnastics, which exactly like you said, those guys, their weight to strength ratio is through the roof. The first time he worked out with you, he threw up and passed out.
Now, the first time we trained, I was much heavier, and that's when it was sort of one of those what do you call it? One of those catalysts that set me on a journey. I couldn't believe how strong he was, and I was powerlifting. So then I did my training, and then 12 months later, I wanted to test how fit I was becoming. So when we trained a year later, and a year is like to go from powerlifting to then a year later, your brother throws up and blacks out is just testament to what you're doing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And don't worry, buddy, I stuck it to him.
Little sibling rivalry. So I would kind of want to get in not into this whole mindset thing. What do you see in now your 11 years of experience, not only personally but training other people in this high intensity, low impact space? What do you see as being the benefits as far as not just physically but mentally and emotionally that come along with this exercising?
Mate, I don't believe enough people out there question self-belief on a regular basis. Full stop. I don't believe enough people out there actually know what purpose means.
Mm.
I've met so many people, mate, that are just going through the motions. And if you come and train with me within 2 minutes, 4 minutes, you'll be questioning whether you can survive 30 minutes with me. And it's not about being fitter, stronger, faster. Who cares? It's about being more. And when you train with me, and I'm like, and I train with people because you got to earn respect, okay? Everyone listening in, you got to earn respect. It doesn't matter who you are.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a CEO, people might respect that title, but doesn't mean they respect you as a human.
Mm.
You still got to earn that. They're fundamentals of being human. So I train with people and to earn their respect and just to help them understand it can be done. And then, mate, after 15 minutes, I know when the head talk sets in because they stop moving and there's this internal dialogue going in. And that's when my role as a coach needs to step up. And I need to inject myself because they're in a negative loop. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. And if I don't break that cycle, they won't make it. And it's about then for me, it's about getting them to that point. So the mindset in what I teach guys, it's not just physical. Physical is small. Okay, it's important, but it's small because life is everything. And mindset will take you through so much. So whenever I teach zoo, it's about pushing yourself to the point daily, or at least a few times a week, to question who you are. You know, as a husband, father, wife, whatever it is, who are you? What are you doing this for? Because if you don't do it, you'll just run through the motions, and living life needs to have meaning and needs to have purpose to it, mate. So I don't believe people test themselves enough um, for self belief. And I love being able to lay down resilience with people and help them understand what true resilience is, because life's tough, mate. And you're a parent and you know what it's like, right?
Yeah.
Life throws curveballs at people. And I often use an analogy, you know, the old saying, a rolling stone gathers no moss, and that's just talking about momentum. And people are like, yeah, I get it, Nathan. I'm like, yeah, but what happens if I stop that rock? What happens to that rock? Well, the moss starts growing on it again, right? And I liken that to being in a rut in life.
Mm.
You're in a rut in life. And I'm like, so how do you get that momentum going again? And most people don't know how to answer that. So, well, that's the difference between motivation and inspiration.
Mm.
Because if it's internal, brother, you don't need no one. You'll just roll it again. And then after a while, when life throws curveballs, you just deflect them. You keep moving forward, even if it's laterally, right? You're still moving forward because you have this vision for yourself, your family, and stuff like that.
That's beautiful. I love that you said that, and it's so true. I 100% agree with you. And if you're listening to this right now, you know that we've talked about this before. Is the importance of challenging yourself physically, because it relates to every other area of your life. Like challenging yourself physically, it's exactly what Nathan was saying. Is you're going to go through these places where it's going to start to get dark. You're going to start to question why you're doing it. You're going to want to quit. You're going to want to give up. You're going to want to like say, I don't ever want to do this again. You might throw up, and hell, you might even pass out. But the question is, like, what are you going to keep doing? And it's the same thing in life. I love that you said that, because guess what? Marriage, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Raising kids, the same thing. Owning a business, even more so. So think about the fact that your body is literally the gateway to power. Your body is literally opening up your capacity to be able to take on life, these curveballs that are coming at you, being able to move laterally or continue to move forward even when the resistance comes, because it will come. There is no doubt. So let me ask you what.
Mate, can I just add something in there?
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of people probably, this is always an aha moment for coaches when I'm coaching them. When we train hard in zoo, stress hormones get released, right? Your cortisol and adrenaline just gets pumped through your system. I love it. But then I also add in lactic and fatigue.
Mm.
They get added in as well. And the whole purpose of you, people might think it's a little bit strange that we're talking like this, but what you need to realize, guys, is building mental resilience. You will only find who you are in those dark places. And the whole point is about learning about who you are, okay, to transfer that into life. Life, marriage, what Garrett said, marriage, paying bills, relationships, raising families, they're the same stress hormones as a workout,
Mm-hmm.
adrenaline and cortisol. So if you can do adrenaline, cortisol, lactic, and fatigue on a regular basis, how do you think you can handle these in life? Well, obviously, you become more resilient. So those people who are training but they're not really pushing themselves, life batters them. And usually the first thing that goes is exercise.
Mm.
If they're stressed, they stop doing exercise, or they don't sleep, or they just don't understand how integral this component is.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Let me ask you this. I want to get your top two or three like takeaways as far as your life experience, that let's just say Joe is listening to this right now and he's 40, 50 pounds overweight. He works too much. He's disconnected in his marriage. Like, and he doesn't even know where to start. Like, what are the top two or three things that you would say, hey, Joe, in my experience, this is what I would do?
Hey, Joe. Look, in my experience, it always starts with you, the person. Always starts with, so for me, it's core beliefs. You need to firstly visit core beliefs. So for me, respect, truth, honor. What are your non-negotiables in life? And people saying, what are you talking about? As an example, I don't accept racism. That's just a non-negotiable for me. These are core principles that form you as a human being. When you have a look at that, and you don't need to sort them out in its entirety, but just revisit that again. So many people just, yeah, I'm respectful, Nathan, behind closed doors, like throughout life. Are you sure? So just have a look at those. The next thing is just to start doing. The next thing is action. Like without action, everything that we learn is just worthless. So many
Hmm.
people are consuming knowledge, and I'm like, so what have you applied? You've applied nothing, so it's worthless. The consumption of knowledge is worthless without practical application. So I can't stress that enough, guys. Doing something is obviously better than doing nothing, but then it's consistency. So probably those three, buddy, and they're not new. These are just, these are timeless, these things I'm talking about. Who are you as a person? Like, what do you stand for? And, you know, that's not an easy thing to solve, but I know you resonate with that, mate. Like, who are you as a man, as a father, as a husband? Find out what that is, Joe. The next thing, mate, whatever training you want to do, just analyze. Like, I would pick, if you're 50, I'd pick something that's low impact, mate. I'd just be doing bear crawls to start with. Bear crawl, I know over 200 body weight movements. If you said, what's the best movement? It's a bear crawl. Because when we popped out of our mum, it was the first movement we learned as humans, right? And when my father had a brain hemorrhage and he went blind and deaf, forgot how to walk, first movement they taught him was a bear crawl. Because you have to crawl to get the cognitive firing patterns going to walk again. I teach this in elite sports. It's just the best movement, guys, you can do. And you can also do it on your knees. If you're too heavy, do it on your knees. Crawl like a baby. Who gives a stuff? It's full body mobilization. It elevates your heart rate. It's low impact, and it's great for engagement. Does that make sense? And then that's taking action. And then the third point is consistency. Inconsistency kills everything.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes. And so, like, just to recap, I want you guys to hear this, right? First of all, like, you need to mentally know what is the purpose behind what it is that you're doing. Like, think about this. A lot of you in life right now, yeah, this is your primary motivation. I want to make more money. And so this fantasy of making more money is somehow going to make you more physically fit, make you more connected, and somehow help you find your purpose in life. But it doesn't work that way. And it's exactly what Nathan said. First, you need to identify the why. Like, why is it that you're doing what you're doing? And what is it that you actually want, right? And then take the action. I love what you said. And it's so funny that I've talked about this before. Like, I've got like a bookshelf full of books. I haven't read three-quarters of them. They look pretty, right?
Yep.
Because they're just full of stuff. And I got tired of this stuff and I said, I need to take action. This is the only thing that's going to get me to where it is that I want to go. And then third is consistency, right? So cool, you can go work out once, you can go work out twice, you can work out for a week. I brought this up the other day. It takes 66 days to create a habit. So are you committed enough to take action for 66 days so that a bear crawl, instead of making you throw up after 20 yards, you're doing 100 yards back and forth, and yeah, you're out of breath, but you're still alive and you're still moving. So I love it. Those three, I'll call them Nathan's life lessons.
I can tell you, mate, by the time you're doing 10 minutes of bear crawls, you're probably an elite athlete. Because I can tell you from experience, guys, of over a decade working with elite athletes, within 2 minutes, within 90 seconds, most are standing up, putting their hands on their heads because it's harder than sprinting.
Mm.
Okay, so don't. Movement is very deceptive. So, what Garrett just said, if you were just simply doing bear crawls every single day, it would cover everything you were looking for in training. And a lot of people don't realize this too, Garrett. Bear crawls is, I call it injury prevention training. And when I present in the medical world, we use it as an injury reduction strategy. In other words, we make your wrists load bearing and we mobilize wrists. So for the elderly, if they slip, the first thing they're going to do is throw out their arms to brace. If this wrist isn't load bearing, the risk of injury is extremely high.
Mm.
We make this load bearing, we reduce the risk of injuries. That's why all people should be doing. And I say this to surgeons and doctors all the time. Why aren't you getting all your patients to spend a minute crawling on the ground? Over in the UK, I was talking to a surgeon over there. He said, Nathan, over 50% of heart attacks, 55 and over, happen when people slip to the ground, panic because the ground's a foreign environment, scramble to get up and have a heart attack. I'm like, so why don't you get them all to spend a minute on the ground building proprioception and just crawling around? And he said to me, makes perfect sense.
That is so true. That is so true. I love that. I love that. Listen, I want the audience to know, okay, I find a connection here. I see something. I need to start doing something. So if they wanted to learn more about your program, if they wanted to start down this path, like what would you tell them?
As in finding us?
Yeah.
Well, two websites I'd be going to is worldzoo.com and thelast28days.com.
And that's Zoo, Z-U-U.
I say Z-U-U, but we can go with the way Garrett said it. So worldzoo.com and thelast28days.com. You'll also see us on Facebook as well. Mate, probably one thing I'd love to get across in this, mate, is everything we're talking about is wonderful, but the most powerful component of what I do and what I teach is the culture of Zoo, and it's about the human touch. I'm massive on that. I believe the human touch has gone missing in society, and I don't care what anyone says. It just needs to come back. And Zoo, we use Zoo in prisons, we use Zoo in elite sports, we use Zoo in military, we use Zoo in schools, we use Zoo in commercial. We use Zoo everywhere because it ticks off the fundamentals of being human. And if you got time, could I just give you a quick example?
Oh, absolutely.
So, guys, I've used Zoo, presented Zoo. We're in Miami in a school in a bad area, barbed wire fences, and I went in there, and they obviously wanted some physical activity, but I'm always there for more than that. I'm there to connect people. It's about connecting people through common purpose. Okay? Too many programs focus on the gifted, good hand-eye coordination. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
What about all the other ones that aren't interested in that? You need to engage them, because when Garrett was talking about, being bullied, low self-esteem, suicidal tendencies, they're real, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're real. And these other physical programs, they have no idea of how to deal with that. Zoo ticks off the physical, social, and mental aspects of health. So, mate, when I went to this school, I said, where's the biggest area you got? And they said, the car park, because they'd sold all their land to keep the school open. I said, okay, cool. Where's your second biggest area? And they said, the cafeteria. So they took me in there and I said, move all the tables and chairs to one side of the room. So they moved it all, and I said, bring them to me. So we were able to fit in 4 classes, so about 70 kids. And you'd relate to this, mate, because I'm about to talk about sort of high-level group dynamics. So when they came in, the classes came in and stayed as groups inside this cafeteria. My role is to cross-contaminate.
Mm-hmm.
My role is to get people to interact as humans should be interacting. So we get them in a big circle, we just jog on the spot, and then I just say, get a touch. And I run into the middle, and you just got to high-five people, and it's just chaos. It's chaos. And then you say, get back out in a circle again. By the time they get back out in a circle, guys, do you think they're in their same groups?
Mm-mm.
They're next to people they don't know. And within 30, 60 seconds, unless you're a good coach, you have no idea what I'm doing. But if you understand forcing group dynamics, you'll know, boom, within 60 seconds, he's cross-contaminating all of these kids, and they're high-fiving, and I'm huge on positive affirmation. So, guys, if I'm getting bullied and I want to nut myself because I'm just sick of it, and Garrett's the best quarterback in the school, and in a moment of time, he gives me a high five and he says to me, good job. You know what that does for my self-esteem? Mate, it goes through the roof. And then all of a sudden, Garrett gets to see me. I'm doing some movements and I'm showing a bit of resilience. And he's looking at me going, he's actually pretty tough. He's a lot tougher than I thought he was.
Mm.
And we get this wonderful, that's why this program, brother, is just so powerful. But I use it not just there, I use it in all different environments where, in harsh environments, in detention centers and things like that, where there's segregation by race, we just cross-contaminate people because it's just about people being together, and I'm huge on that, mate. And that's the culture of Zoo. I didn't mean to create it, mate, and I'm honest and humble about that, but I respect what it can do. And that's why I love whenever I was at the NASM, National Academy of Sports Medicine conference last year. I did a pre-con there. The pre-conference was rated number one by all the attendees, not for the movements. It was rated number one, I believe, because I connected the people together.
Right.
And the people walk. I had one of the heads of NASM, and he said to me, "Bro, I came in thinking I was going to learn some funky new movements, but you talking about life." And he said, "You connected me with all these people." And I'm like, shouldn't everyone be doing that, mate?
Mm.
Like, you know what I mean? So, mate, I feel that the world, whether it's business, whether it's sport, whether it's fitness, has lost their way with this, and they've lost the art of bringing people together or the value as they go down this technological garbage highway. It's segregating people more and more. I did a rooftop workout at Facebook headquarters last year in San Francisco, and I got to cross-contaminate all these team leaders. What do you reckon happens when you cross-contaminate team leaders? All of a sudden, you don't need HR, and they're talking to each other. Does that make sense? What?
Yes.
That's the way it should be, right?
Yes.
So, like Garrett, you know, if Garrett and I have a problem, and we're both team leaders in a different organization, and all of a sudden Nathan connects us through Zoo, and we get a touch and all the rest of it, all of a sudden we can have an open conversation with each other, and we can sort stuff out the way it should be. And
I love that. More cross-contamination, less segregation.
yeah, cross-contaminate silos, mate, especially in organizations. You know what they're like? They're silos. But they need to actually, by the time you get the CEO talking to the mail boy, that company will go through the roof.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. That's beautiful. So guys, like listen, this was just knowledge bomb after knowledge bomb, but I want you guys to see like what happened here. We started talking about movements. We started talking about your body, physically taking care of your body, physically pushing your body to places that you never thought were possible before, how that affects your mental psyche, how that affects your ability to cope with everything else that happens in life. But then the next level being, how does that affect human interaction? How does that affect the people around you? Like, when's the last time that you gave your neighbor a high five?
Yep.
Think about that. When's the last time at your office, if you're the CEO, if you're the entrepreneur, if you're whatever it is that your role is, when's the last time that you gave somebody a hug or you gave them a fist bump or you gave them a high five? Like, when's the last time you did that? And what that does, exactly like Nathan says, is it grants us now permission to have that open and honest conversation. Physical movement grants permission, right? Cross-contamination, not segregation. That was beautiful. Beautiful.
Mate, one more story for you.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Guys, when I went over to Singapore for the first time, like I've done Zoo with people who don't speak English, but they know what a human touch is and they know what a smile is. Okay? That'll help you understand. It's not even language. It's universal language that I'm talking about. When I went to Singapore, the director of all Virgin Active, Richard Branson's health clubs over there, he said, I want to see if Zoo works, but I don't think it will because the people are almost, you know, they're really structured, they're cold, they don't get a touch. Mothers, they're very career driven. After they have a baby, mums go back to work, the babies go to a full-time nanny at around 6 weeks. I'm like, it is what it is, buddy. And I know people. I might have to dig deeper into my repertoire, but people are still the same. They just have more barriers up. So anyway, did a session with about 55 people in the room, and mate, fogged all the windows up. Fogged all the windows up with the honest work rate. And then we got kicked out of the studio. We went to the functional zone. I told everyone to take a knee just so I could give them some coaching tips. I said, thank you very much for your time. And I walked off, and the whole group, 50 plus people, walked with me. Then I turned around and they dropped down again. So I gave them some more coaching tips, and I turned left and they stood up and they followed me again. Happened 3 times. And in the end, I said, look, it's time to hit the showers. Thank you very much for your time. They were all clapping and all the rest of it. 8 members were watching. 5 of them came up to me after and they said, are you guys a team touring Asia? And I said, I didn't know I'm from a bar of soap 50 minutes ago. But from the outside looking in, we were so bonded. They thought we were a team touring. That's the power that Garrett's talking about, guys. That's the power you can have in your family, in your community, to bring them together. And sometimes it's a lonely path, and you'll agree with me there, brother. Yeah. Leadership can be a lonely path, but it should be, all right? Because leadership is, you're walking where no one else is walking. And leadership is all about serving people. So for the CEOs listening in, you need to go around and walk and talk to the people who are directly related to your success. So they'll give you discretionary effort. They will bleed the brand. Does that make sense? And that's just the power of connecting.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Like, if you guys, I know you're going to listen to this on your podcast, I would go back and listen to this again. There were so many nuggets of information. But if you can remember one thing and one thing only, it all starts with your why, right? Why is it that you're doing what you're doing? Take the action and then the consistency of that action. Those three things, those three nuggets that Nathan dropped for you will lead you down the path of creating the life that you desire. And most important, human touch. Reach out.
Human touch. Oh, my wife sent me a note. She said, I also do podcasts, Liberating Human Movement, Nathan Hellberg. You can find me there. Nowhere near as good as Garrett. He's got the place set up there. Mate, look, it's been an absolute privilege, buddy. Love what you're doing and how you're empowering people. There's not enough people, mate. I believe we're a dying breed, especially with the younger generation coming through. They want things now. They want instant gratification. They don't know that good things in life take time. We can short track that 100%, and you want to short track it, but you've got to learn that the graft is part of the process, right?
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. Well, Nathan, thank you for taking time to be on the show. I really appreciate it. And remember, go to theworldzoo.com. And what was the second one?
The last 28 days.
The last28days.com. And then again, if you're looking for just some simple things, life hacks, whatever you want to call them, you can go to garrettbake.com or you can go to winthedailywar.com. We got some stuff there for you. But listen, in the end, the only thing that matters is that you take action. Start doing something, right? You can sit there and piss and moan about your life all day long, but nothing will change. Take action to get what it is that you want out of life. All right, that is it for today. As always, ladies and gentlemen, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next one.